Okay. All right. So we're gonna go to the break in a minute, unless people have any questions about if you don't have the information you need to select your tutorial. Yeah.
I see a tutorial for pen control for iBooks.
Yeah, that is by Florian, who is not here. So we'll update you on whether that has happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. They didn't tell us they weren't coming, but
Yeah. All right. Cool. Any other questions?
We have questions of people who just talk.
So yeah, that sounds good.
I had a question for Gordon, since you know a bit about false. It sounds like, even though you're not a false person. So do you have a sense, you said there's lots of companies in different cities that do this kind of thing. Do you have a sense of how much overlap there is between these like small local recruiters and the what seem like superordinate companies that hire local companies like Pulse and like so Qualtrics does this as well? I have a impression with Qualtrics, we found out without them telling us that they weren't actually recruiting, that they were recruiting directly like half of our participants. And then it turned out that they had hired 20 other companies, which is fine. I mean, we need the data anyway. But like, I will sort of don't understand how this ecosystem works. Yeah, maybe something about that.
Yeah. So I think it's extremely varied. IST research does a lot of on-the-ground recruitment themselves. So I think for Pulse Recruiter in particular, there's not much overlap at all with like they're not just hiring out recruitment to a local recruitment service. They are coming up with new ways to recruit participants through innovative means, everything from mobile phone ads to like radio like local radio advertisements and things like that. Your experience with Qualtrics. So for those who haven't spent much time working with Qualtrics, Qualtrics is a few things. It is an organization. Their primary product in most people's minds is a survey tool, but they also like they're a big company that can do recruitment for you. So that if you want to not, instead of running a survey on Qualtrics and bringing your own participants, you can hire them to go do recruitment for you. And then the thing is that they have many different sources of participants that they internally can hire out of recruitment. I don't have any insight into their organization, but I think they're flexible enough that Qualtrics might be a special case of an organization that's kind of trying to put itself at that recruitment level of being able to do anything because they can subcontract anything.
I'm curious what your experience was doing that. So our experience has been that the recruitment services mostly are kind of optimized for surveys, and if you try and run experiments, you get terrible data back because people have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, so I mean, we've only run one experiment with them, but it's taken something like 3.5 years and like $75,000.
Yeah.
It was a large project. I mean, it was a pretty large commitment to it, but it wasn't supposed to be this large. It's a project that's happening in like 30 different languages, 4 different countries. The problem with Qualtrics for us, and this part of Qualtrics, not the service, was basically kind of a mismatch of like academia to marketing. When they said, "Oh yeah, if you've given us this specs of this experiment, we can definitely do that, no problem." That wasn't true.
Yeah.
So that has been a bit of an issue. But like the details turn out to matter for us in ways that are different, but the details matter for marketing.
Yeah, and we use the representative sampling in that.
Okay, so it's not just the different country stuff, it's also we weren't doing that.
It's related. Diana, I wonder how many people per each of those experiments, how many participants do you recruit? Is there overlap? Is there any kind of questionnaire to see whether they're also interners or not?
So we asked at the end of the study whether or not they've done anything similar. Other things to check, which is everything with kind of knowledge of that. We have only just launched, so 1 to 2 per study, and those are This is kind of a general question for all the tools, so it's bad, but piggybacking on Sam's point, how much of it is like, I'm wondering which countries are available on this platform? Is this like mainly in the US, with English, or can it be used in other, countries with other?
So, Bree, did you want to talk about?
Yeah, so Olympics, current, panel, is mainly US based. We have a couple thousand people who are based in different countries in the EU. That's kind of, it's quite difficult to do with localization,
Yeah, so I can say historically for games with words, certainly we get more data from well, U.S., Canada, and across Europe, and China, and India. Like those are like major hotspots. But we've had visitors from, as far as I can, I mean like Vanuatu, like every country that I have heard of at least. And I couldn't find any we didn't have subjects from. Now we didn't get a lot of people from Vanuatu, but and it's when I say like mostly like it's, I mean we had for like one study, I forget what the completion rate was like, but in terms of visitors, 1% of the population of Finland. For whatever reason, I don't know, it got really. And for some reason, studies keep on going viral in Hungary. I don't know why. I can't read the Hungarian websites that are sending traffic our way, so I'm not really sure. But anyway, Hungary really likes my studies.
People don't, for whatever reason,
Yeah, and instantly, and that is all my studies are in English. I'm sure we would get even more broader participation if we had studies that were in other languages.
Well, similar to what Joe says, we got participation very heavily towards Western Europe and North America, but Salem and China, South America, various places join in. One of the things that's recognized is that very easy to translate projects to any language you want. So I'm passing on that. It's kind of open and volunteer translation platform. It's very easy to use, so you can get
The one thing is if you have a study that pays, countries that are either in financial ban or they don't have for some reason some deal with Visa or MasterCard or whatnot, you can't really do that with them. So there is that other further. So some local companies would need to help you to sort of shortcut the ban.
This is such a wonderful opportunity to comparison shop. So I'm wondering, like, what the overhead is with these different, the costs of these different platforms. Like, if we don't have 75,000 for.
We're free.
Sorry?
At zero, no cost.
Beautiful.
I mean, for the things that Josh was talking about, I think the primary cost is server costs, which are non-trivial. I don't know if you know the sense of what that is.
Yeah, so I will say like right now, what we're spending is probably, we've not optimized for cost because the costs of web servers relative to the cost of developers has been such that it hasn't made sense to put in the time to optimize. So we're spending about $300 a month right now running the website, and we get, what, 1,000 visitors a day. So if you can think about that in terms of like, you know, cost per person, it's not bad. I think we can get that down to quite a bit less than that. About 2/3 of our costs, according to my graduate student, are the database, and we are paying for. Basically, I woke up one morning some years back, discovered my MySQL database was corrupted. And this was during, I mean, your chances of having something like that happen are much higher when you have a lot of traffic. But when you have a lot of traffic is precisely when you do not want to have a database corruption problem. And so having been, I mean, I was able to ultimately recover most of the data through like, you know, days of panic. But we still probably lost like a couple 100,000 subjects through that like database fail. So I've been willing to pay for like sort of like probably more database than we need. So anyway, but it's not super expensive as things go.
And then for Dallinger, there's extra costs for, you hope to have a server that's managing the database and so on, and we budget those at about 10% of the participant costs when they're paid participants through a service like Mechanical Turk. Using services like Qualtrics, if you're doing representative recruiting, it costs about twice as much as something like Mechanical Turk. Although we discovered that you get about half as many participants who actually complete the experiment, and so it's costing more time.
You're doing international stuff with Qualtrics, it ranges from like $6 per participant to $25 per participant.
It can be a lot more than that if you have very like I was looking, like they gave me a quote for non-native speakers of Spanish living in Spanish-speaking countries, and that was more like $50 a person. So it really depends on how hard they think it's going to be to find the participants.
And it seems like the way they set those prices is kind of arbitrary. Like they don't actually know for sure if they can get the sample that they think they're going to get. So we have less than 40 countries that we want to 300 people in one. And so sure, we can, no problem, Sri Lanka's not, we got that. Definitely not. They don't have them all. So that's a much more expensive and kind of targeted route that is not necessarily what you're saying. Our server costs are less than what Josh described for Angel's Word, about $110. But the server costs are like a really kind of, I guess, semi-misleading description of the cost here, because I have a student who's a full-time developer. That costs a lot of money. Josh has been outsourcing a lot of development. That costs a lot of money. So, I mean, one of the nice things about these things starting to be done, at least, is that we took on the R&D costs, so other people can use them.
Rita, do you want to say anything about pricing?
Yeah, well, so I guess cost and pricing, right? So I can't disclose too much about cost, but we do probably spend a lot more money because we have 60 people and certain costs, but also we're payments, right, payments too, because research costs quite a lot. We were paying like $20,000 per month to kick off alone. So we have processed over, I think, just about $8 million in the past year, and we charge 30% for each of those sites. And we do mandate a minimum payment of $6.5 per hour for participants because we think it's difficult to do so. So it kind of depends on, like the length of your study and how many people you want, but normally it doesn't have to be super expensive. We do offer the representative sample service now, so it's slightly more expensive. We charge slightly extra for that because it's good money for us. Yeah, so you can easily actually see how much the study will cost just by setting things up. We have a pricing thing in other study setup.
So I actually wanted to bring up a variant of Adele's question because I think it's important and probably really useful to get the presenters to weigh in on this, which is, as Sam and I both pointed out, like the real costs are not the like web server, right? It's development time, and there I think it's going to be variable. I think I really like Abdullah's like graph of the like ease of use versus flexibility. I think we are at a point, like I'll say, like I think we're at a point with like Pushkin/JSPsych. If you want to do a fairly like standard, say like lexical decision experiment, which is what Josh is going to be demoing today, that is probably something that like a graduate student or a talented undergraduate who has some time can pull off, right? And it really, but it depends on like how creative you want to be. I mean, we've had, I think one of the focuses of this, workshop has been, thinking beyond, the standard experimental paradigms that we're used to. That I think is, getting easier, certainly. I think like a lot of the tools that are available are making that easier, but I think it also people's ambitions just grow with it. So I think, we've needed, essentially like someone doing full-time development. not someone who is like a trained web developer, because I think also, as Abdullah pointed out, they are often not super useful because they build something that is like very nice and absolutely useless for science. I think I'll name no names, but somebody managed to spend most of a grant on developers who spent their entire time coming up with a version-controlled version of MongoDB, which turns out you can actually do the exact same thing in just like a standard database by just logging all of your database calls. And now you have also a version-controlled database. But developers were really excited about MongoDB for a while. Anyway, so I think I personally had much more success getting somebody who is a scientist first and then training them to do development. But anyway, so I think, for what, we've been doing, having somebody who's really invested in web development has been necessary. I think it's useful asking the other people, like, what they feel like, the sort of like staff you need is. And again, they said, if you're doing like a more like standard paradigm, I think it's probably not the case. But if you want to do something with like complex feedback or like interacting groups, then at least for us right now with our platform, that's harder.
Yeah, I mean, we could even have people point to where they think they are on this code. I don't know, Jordan, do you want to?
So maybe I'll comment. Kind of a follow-up on George's point. So when we were actually, like many of these projects, this started like just something, like an ad hoc, one-off experiment that I did. And when I submitted it for publication, the reviewer asked me to run an additional condition, and that was just a pain. Like I couldn't do it. Like each experiment would just take months. Every time when I manipulate something, I can't just like sample from a space of experiments or have some level of abstractions. So I've been working for a couple of years kind of to abstract these ideas, and then one thing that we always had this idea in mind, because actually, so this is fake data in the sense that this is more reflective of my mood when I tried these tools as a graduate student, and then we really are. But really, I couldn't find.
This axis is like how angry you got.
And so so exactly like with real-time interactions and a little bit like more complicated things, these tools are quite easy for the types of experiments that the developers had in mind, or the designers of these platforms had in mind, but it didn't have enough flexibility such that I can really try a wide range of new types of experiments. So one thing that we kept doing at MIT, where I did my PhD as well, is that I always had hackathons where we have undergraduate students who look CS usually, who don't know much about the social science research, replicate interactive experiments from published papers, just from the description of those experiments. And that kind of shows us kind of the separation between coming up with a question, the design of the decisions that researchers have to make, and then the technique kind of isolating where the technical skills need to be and kind of just outsource that to someone who can code it and learn JavaScript yourself. So far, probably 60% of the experiments using Empirica are developed by researchers, or like scientists who can learn how to use the platform and they have some programming experience. The remaining 40% are people who don't necessarily want to, they don't think it's worth it to dedicate a expensive graduate student to learn how to use JavaScript, for example. And what we have is a network of affiliated freelance developers. So how we actually maintain Empirica, we have no funding. Actually, it's all volunteer freelance software engineers, some of them with like 15, 20 years of experience, who resolve issues and contribute to the core of Empirica. And in return, we actually connect them to researchers who don't want to develop their own experiments, but these freelancers are familiar with the platform. They are developing kind of the core of the platform. As well, they are familiar with working with researchers. So each of them like develop maybe 2 experiments per month. So they understand a lot of how to deal with university kind of finances and like payment systems, to things about randomization, a little bit of the research methods and what you might consider. And I think they are quite good. The range of the cost of most of these experiments by hiring these freelance software engineer has been between $2,000 for a simple experiment up to $8,000, quite complicated experiment with multiple sessions in teams over a week. Every day teams come back and work together with some even like non-trivial custom randomization, block randomization procedure. So kind of the cost of development is not high because they are quite quick and they are very familiar with the platform itself. And you pay them hourly, so it's kind of not an long-term commitment like hiring a software engineer or having these.
That's a
So
great
how
one.
many subjects get the platform simultaneously recruit for experiments that are multiplayer?
500 real-time interactions. So as someone makes a decision, everyone else can observe that decision almost in simulated real time, up to 500. But that's there will be a high. So this the deployment, the server side can scale up and down with the button, and the biggest server can handle 500 simultaneous players in the game.
So like if the game goes on for an hour, how many can you like run long?
So it depends on the group size. So we run, for example, an experiment with 3,000 people, but it's groups of 3 or 4. So it kind of depends on the group size in one world that are interacting with each other.
And what's the maximum scale group size in one world for experiment? Just trying to figure out how many.
For a real experiment, around 100. For testing the platform, 500.
Yeah, and Jordan, do you want to talk about that for down here in a similar?
Where do you get your
From a mixture of from a mixture of sources, mainly internet. For some of these different stuff.
So that means you get 500 people there at one time.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm using.
Really? Yeah. We capped out at around 200. Yeah.
About how to, so there are actually, if you go to the Internet forums, there has been this James and I, we had long discussions with Turkers of how can we actually keep people online at the same time and not waste anyone's time into the Turkers. And we came up with some sort of a pipeline that can work. But then we find kind of the maximum you can get with Enter, what we call high effort participants, which are these participants that you can actually schedule things with and have more complicated types of experiments. There's no more than 2,500 participants. Like beyond that, so one thing we are trying to do is kind of to have an interface that can recruit participants simultaneously from multiple platforms. So we recruit participants could submit hits to several platforms. We direct them with private panels as well. We direct them to your platform, have them run the experiment. The experiment will keep track each participant is coming from which kind of source, so you can actually handle the data.
And the developers, so the experimenters would need to implement that, or you guys will handle that part of it? So like, let's say I'm going to put up a multi-agent experiment on your platform. When it's multi-platform recruitment, do I need to do the coding for that, or is there automatic interface that
At the moment, there is semi-automatic, so it's kind of a code that you will have to kind of run to handle all of these things. The idea that, or the hope is that we want to kind of have a better interface for that so that we can do it as a service.
so what's the ease of use right now?
For the actual implementation of the experiment, I'm ready to take kind of a challenge for any experiment that you can come up with in terms of design, the software bit, so the actual interaction aspect of it, will take no more than a few weeks. But then getting the recruitment, coming up with that question, kind of following your pilots is something that is outside of the plan. There are other tools that we kind of build for ourselves, so we can kind of streamline the entire thing, but they are, people have different preferences of how they recruit their participants, how they handle payments. Some people don't want to use like behavioral labs, a convenient way to give samples, so we don't force it as part of the experimentation software itself. And the development is only for example, experience.
And then I think Dallinger is a thing where if you're doing something that fits, we have a bunch of templates that are in there. If you're doing something that fits one of the templates, which include basically the games and things like that, or transmission chains, are these simple examples. It's relatively straightforward to come up with a new experiment. You basically have to write the client side out of it, which is the experiment interface. If you're innovating on the design of those, which is something that Bill has a lot of experience with, then there's more of a learning curve to get to the point where you're ready to do that. Bill, how long did it take you to get up to speed from zero?
From something like that. But there's a curve at which point AI starts to be really high.
What we just said describes sort of the general fact about starting space. So like what Josh Lou said about JS sites over Anchor, I've got undergrads who come in, after 2 or 3 days of playing around with it, they design some experiments. After a week of playing on it, they can write their own plugins, and we needed to write a lot of plugins on this stuff. So long as the students are only working on the experiment, it's a very low volume and very quick. For the back end stuff, it's much less.
One more question.
Yeah, I was wondering for the different platforms, is there any of the platforms that can really do, where you can do sort of longer experiments? Because our problem with MDirt has been that, you know, we usually do maybe like 15-minute experiments at most, but usually I get participants into the lab and I teach them like artificial languages, and our experiments are usually at least an hour or so. So is any of the platforms, especially the participant recruitment platforms, like, have they been successful with sort of like longer experiments?
And I know that the our longer study
But that's not 12 years of continuous.
Yeah.
We have people transferring pages, for example, and like students who spend hours participating on this.
Yeah, in some sense, the criteria there is you don't require everyone to spend the same amount of time. For our question experiments, you need everyone to spend exactly the same amount of time, which is the bigger
Well,
challenge.
you said in the past, just that, but I forget a bunch of people who have to do it, and you got a bunch of people who
Drop out.
I'm going to do a day one flashback, which is, it is true the way that we design studies, we expect people to spend the same amount of time. There's a question of whether that is necessary or something that is like a cultural artifact of the way we've done studies in the past. I think that, so for like the viral quiz model, there it is very hard to get people to spend more than 15 minutes. 5 to 10 is a sweet spot. Less than that is even better. That's for the viral quiz model. At the same time, how many people spend how much time playing Fortnite, right? Like if you can come up with something like, you know, a quiz or something that's like boring, people aren't going to do for very long. If you have like an entertaining game, right? If you like are able to build, and this is actually like a real life example, this has been done, your artificial grammar writing study into a Tetris game, people will play a long time.
Okay, all right, we're going to go to break. So after the break, we're going to have Dallinger and AO2 just over here, volunteer science, and A30 over here.
Before we,
Yeah.
can we just check the interest to make sure that makes sense?
Okay. I think we're going to be fine in terms of, okay, I think we just need to check. Okay, how many people are going to go to Zooniverse? How many people to JSSEC? Okay, so maybe we need to move JSSEC. Volunteer science. Okay, so let's switch volunteer science and JSSEC. Yeah? Okay. All right, so we're going to have, oh, that's good, then that's in the same room. All right, so we have JSSEC at 8:30. Zooniverse in 5:11, and volunteer science in 4:11.
Where's Dallinger?
Dallinger is in AO2, which is just right there. I wonder if we want to.
Is it really high?
If we just divide the audio files.
No, it's an hour.
Oh, if you split up the audio into like the different
I was gonna say.
scenes.
Yeah.
Right, is that what I can't do that about it.
Yeah. So please say hi. I didn't realize that you were on that project. Yeah. Totally through. Totally skipped out.
That's fine, we can chat another time.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Question about JS, like, can you handle interpersonal, social experiments, or is it just usually
Like
with
the
one?
questions.
Or like anything with more than one person?
So I've done it, but it's not.
So everyone, we'll meet back in this room at 12
It's
after
not-
the tutorials. There's a short talk before that.
It's not the specialty of the class,
Yeah.
right? So like if I was gonna do it, I'd probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna.
But
Yeah, 'cause
so I've written a back end
Yeah.
that I like in graduate school. Somebody came to me, do we look at a project together? Or do we look at together? So yes, you can do it, but it's not like.
Good, it's good to know. Thank you very much.
I guess that was my That's what I did the lamp cover. Like that's what I did. It turned out to be the actual. Okay, so
Is that the mix for the
You said you tell me the story about like.
Every question you ever had,
Oh, 2 or 30.